Hello guys, and welcome to yet another hangout with the International Full Sweep Timeline, pre-recorded as usual. I hope at some point to make another, to go live, put it that way. But shadow banning is just insane, and I can't justify. Well, I mean, there's no point going online if there's only one or two people there, or maybe just me. This is going to be a real mixed bag from a lot of stuff I found last month, January, and things I've been doing. I'd say a real mixed bag. First, something slightly unusual: GROK and ChatGPT. On the off chance you're not familiar with these terms, they are this much vaunted artificial intelligence. These programs are not really intelligent. They are what are called large language models, abbreviated to LLMs. And they, I published an article, and also, well, first up I made a video about my misadventures with these, and then I made I wrote an article. I'll put links below. But I decided to ask them for information on false rape cases. I don't know any from Chile, so I asked about false rape allegations from Chile. I was given an answer by, I think it was GROK. I haven't checked it out yet, but I don't have any faith in it from what transpired. But this isn't my first visit to this program. But I asked about Scotland. I said, if I can find the actual wording. It was, no, I can't. It's something like, please give me the names of women who've been convicted in Scotland of making false rape allegations. And I was given the name Eleanor Williams, who you may, if you're in the UK, you may recognise that name. She's that totally mad woman who faked injuries, well, injured herself and claimed that she was a victim of a grooming gang. She's on the false rape timeline. I'll put a direct link to her. And it gave me her name and one, I think one or two others. And I fed back into it. Eleanor Williams was not convicted of making a false rape allegation in Scotland. Please amend this claim. Please add other names to the list of women convicted of making false rape allegations in Scotland using the International False Rape Timeline. And for some reason it wasn't able to use the false rape timeline. And the response I got, this is GROK because it's tongue-in-cheek. Elon Musk has put some sort of well, he's a sort of tongue-in-cheek sort of guy there. Eleanor Williams was indeed convicted for making false rape allegations, but this took place in England, specifically in Barrow-in-Furness, Cumbria, not in Scotland. She was convicted of perverting the course of justice at Preston Crown Court. Regarding other women convicted of making false rape allegations in Scotland, according to the International False Rape Timeline, here are some additional names. Oh, that's me. That was me. But but the programme comes back with Sarah Munro, convicted in 2015 for falsely accusing a man of rape in Aberdeen. She admitted to fabricating a story after being caught in inconsistencies during the investigation. And then there was Rhoda Malone. Although her case involved allegations of sexual misconduct rather than rape directly, she was convicted in 2019 for perverting the course of justice by making false claims against a fellow police officer. Well, I must admit I'd never heard of these. And when I dug deeper, Sarah Munro is actually a judge who sat on a rape case. Rhoda Malone, she wasn't convicted of anything. She was complaining about the way male police officers treated her in Scotland, sexism, sexual harassment, all sort of rubbish. So you know, don't believe everything you read, and don't believe everything you hear, even from something which calls itself intelligent, which isn't really intelligent at all. Still in Scotland, this is an article from London Metro, a very widely reported story. 7 members of depraved Glasgow grooming gang jailed for life. Simon Webb has commented on this, that they're not really a grooming gang. That's assuming this is actually what happened. The reason, as he pointed out, and as I thoroughly agree with it, is that because of all this talk about, as you may know, there's this the actual grooming gang in scandal in England has exploded, and they're trying to pretend now that, well, they've done this for some time, that most grooming gangs are white. You know, the other one was majority of sexual offences are committed by white offenders rather than Pakistani males or males of Pakistani heritage ancestry. I've read about this some time ago. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 men. 5 men and 2 women. First one, she's a woman. It's a poor photograph of her. 2 women and 5 men, all convicted of gang rape and child abusing other children under the age of 13 at a Glasgow drug den over a 7-year period. The thing I noticed about this was that when this was first in the news, I think they were all granted bail, and they seemed to be laughing as though they didn't take it seriously. The bottom line is that the claim is that they pimped out their kids for drugs. Now, I've heard this before in a fashion. Marie Black, I'll put a link to her. I believe she is a victim of a terrible miscarriage of justice. But, you know, God helps those who help themselves, and Alexander Barron tries to. And I know I had some correspondence with her. I spoke to her father and to her lover, and there's no follow-up. This was a few years ago now. But this case is quite extraordinary, and some, as with a lot of these cases, there's a whiff of fantasy about them. 4 of the group, Owens, Lannery, Brannan and Williams, were also found guilty of attempting to murder a child by pushing it into a microwave and trapping her in other places. Well, if the 4 of them tried to murder this kid, why didn't they succeed? The gang was sentenced to between 8 and 20 years in prison before they could apply for parole, and were handed lifelong restriction orders, which mean they may never be released. You know, was there... I don't know, I mean, was there some sexual abuse? As they were led to the cells, Clark, who was wearing a shirt with innocent men on the back, shouted, "There's no evidence at all," while Owens clapped as he was led away by prison officers. I might, and I stress might, write to 1 or 2 of these. I mean, if they'd done half these things, I mean, I'm quite happy to see them rot. An allegation that the accused used a Ouija board to call on spirits and demons and make the victims take part in witchcraft was dropped by prosecutors during the trial. Wonder why that was. This is insane. I mean, I'm not saying insane things don't happen. I mean, Fred West, if you're not familiar with Fred and Rose, look them up on YouTube and elsewhere. That was a good few years ago, wasn't it? Good, that was 30 years ago. Time flies when you're having fun. I don't know how much of this to believe. I think there's definitely a lot of fabrication here, but say if there's any truth to this, it's insane. As for the grooming gangs, I've covered this elsewhere. I mentioned this, discussed it, but there's always call for public inquiry. I don't think there is any need for a public inquiry. What is needed, as somebody who knows about these things told me, is for teams of experienced detectives working under a KC to investigate, and he would love to head one of those teams. The police are actually getting to grips with this now. I mean, they have, the talk in the media of late has been slightly misleading, because there has been a lot of press coverage of this. It took years to come to court. It took years to come about. It's been said that there were gangs like this operating in the 1970s. I don't know about that. Certainly not on this scale. But there have been many convictions since Jack Straw first commented on this. Convictions of lots of gangs, and recently there have been 2 police officers. Let me look for this. I should put a link here. Yeah, this is from LBC, January 29th. 2 ex-police officers arrested for child sexual abuse in Rotherham after complaints from 4 survivors, by Joseph Al Shemery. 2 former South Yorkshire police officers have been arrested on suspicion of historical. They said historical, not historic. Well done. Historical child sexual abuse offences dating back to 1995 as part of an investigation into exploitation in Rotherham. Yeah, I mean, this thing is, the idea that this was just a group of Paki taxi drivers and kebab shop owners. No, this is something which, this is a sort of corruption we've seen like before with Scotland Yard. Was back in the 60s. There was like the porn squad, and in the United States there have been several scandals. The film Serpico is based on the real life undercover corruption and undercover police. Yeah, I think it's. I mean, they couldn't have got away with this from just complacency. I think there have been senior police officers, white police officers, and council members, and I know that money changed hands as well. This is something really big, and it was swept under the fence, swept under the carpet, and it really is disgraceful. Now, as I've said before, I don't believe all allegations uncritically. There have been false allegations, not just Eleanor Williams, but they've been false, and even genuine victims do embellish, and not all these victims were victims. Sammy Woodhouse, for example, is not a victim, no kind of victim. So that's going to run and run. I think it will take probably another year to get to the bottom of it. Will there be a public inquiry? I don't know, but I say the police, National Crime Agency, are onto this. And although a lot of these things are historical, they've got like phone records, DNA in many cases from victims, and there'll be other records, bank records, traffic, all sorts of stuff. And I think a lot of people, including police officers and people working for Rotherham Council, Rochdale Council, Oldham Council, various councils, will have a lot of explaining to do. So this is something we'll keep our eye on. It really is horrible business. Something else that's in the news from the United States, and this is something which, here's one story. Former Blair High School teacher arrested on rape and destroying evidence charges. This is Blair, Oklahoma. and the perpetrator is a female teacher named Brittany Lee Gray. Probably giving some 14-year-old kid extra lessons after school. I mean, I really can't take these seriously. The idea that, which is quite attractive actually, if you ignore the tattoos on her arm, but the idea that this is like comparable with like male teachers having sex with underage girls is just silly. I mean, I don't know how old these so-called victims were. Second-degree rape. Doesn't say. I mean, if it's like an 8-year-old kid, obviously, but like 14 or 15-year-old kids having it off with their female teachers. So when I was at school, there were a couple older. One in particular, until I got close up to her and smelt her breath through the cigarettes. But I can't take these sort of things seriously. There have been quite a few of these of late, all female teachers, and obviously the kids don't complain until the relationship ends. I'm sorry, I cannot take these seriously. Prince Andrew is back in the news again. Apparently it's come to light that he maintained his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein for longer than he claimed. This guy hasn't done himself any favours. He certainly had very poor advice. His attempts to dodge that writ served by that little slut, Virginia Giuffre, the former Virginia Roberts, that didn't do him any favours. If he did have sex with her, he should have just come out and said yes, because I'll put links below. I've actually made a playlist of Prince Andrew stuff. If you go to the designated page on the Full Swipe timeline, where I got the list of videos I've made, including Full Swipe hangouts, Full Swipe timeline hangouts. But there's various videos, and I've written articles about it as well. This woman has zero credibility because in 2011 she said there's no suggestion that she'd been sexually abused by Andrew, and she told other people that she'd had sex with Andrew and she was happy with it. And that photograph, if it is genuine, I think it probably is, she had that taken to show her mum. Mum, this is the member of the royal family who raped me. I don't think so. But Andrew hasn't done himself any favours. He's had very poor advice, and this odious woman has been given a free pass by the media and by the legal authorities as well. Because if Ghislaine Maxwell stood trial, she should have been standing trial with her. As it was, the prosecution, the state, didn't find her. Well, they didn't even call her as a witness. She had such. She was so disreputable, to put it that way. And from what I saw of the Maxwell trial, you don't wonder what she was convicted of. You know, I mean, it's just. I say in Britain, should have been given 5 years at most, at the very most, not 20. Anything involving kids, though, it generates hysteria. But if you compare the treatment of Jeffrey Epstein's so-called victims who were paid like $200 for giving him massages, and went back again and again and again, we compare that with the way some of these girls were treated by these package taxi drivers and others, raped, gang raped, impregnated. I mean, there's no comparison, and some of them are given like slaps on the wrist sentences. One got about 4 years. It was out back on the street in 4 years, and living in the same area as one of his victims, probably some of his victims. So don't believe everything you read about Prince Andrew or hear about Prince Andrew. Check out what I've written about him. It's all thoroughly documented. What I've recorded, it's all thoroughly documented. Go through the chronology and then ask yourself how consensual is sordid sex, perhaps with a hefty fee, not necessarily paid with Andrew's knowledge. Ask yourself how that suddenly becomes rape. Right, this is an article from Metro, January 29th, page 6. There have been similar reports in other newspapers. Women's refuge at risk as charity calls for urgent funding by Sarah Hooper. The idea that charities should receive funding from national or local government, no, I mean, these are fake charities. A domestic abuse refuge says it may not survive after a national charity warned government spending on life-saving support fell £321 million short of what was needed last year. Yeah, I'm sure it was. Research from Women's Aid found an estimated 1.3 million women in England experienced domestic abuse in 2023. Seriously? Well, what does that domestic abuse entail? Maybe their husband's shouting at them and them shouting back. I mean, what does domestic abuse mean? Does it mean an argument? A black eye? Being stabbed? It's garbage. And of course, they have to put in the usual politically correct stuff. I'm worried about our survival, said Surwait Sahal, chief executive of Roshni, a Birmingham-based group that supports black and minoritized, that's a strange word, black and minoritized communities affected by domestic abuse, including forced marriage and honour-based abuse. Yeah, sure. Places like Roshni rely on various grant funders, and government cuts are pushing a lot of other organisations towards grant funding too. Again, they're not charities. This is a gravy train. According to Women's Aid, fewer than 1 in 10 victims received community-based support as refuge services lack the resources to support them. What does that mean, support? What does that mean, support? The charity welcomed Labour's pledge to halve violence against women and girls in a decade, but called for renewed urgency to ensure domestic abuse services are sustainably funded to support all survivors. If you look them up on the Charity Commission website, Women's Aid, data for financial year ending March 31st, 2023. Total income £5,397,522. Total expenditure £6,786,963. 109 employees. Employees with total benefits over £60,000. It's a bit unclear. This here, a number of employees pays £90,000 to £100,000. One. And it's just, I don't know, it's just, that's quite a bit of trading. Activities, how the charity spends its money. Women's Aid is a national charity for women and children working to end domestic abuse. We are a federation of nearly 180 organisations providing just under 300 local life-saving services to women and children across the country. Yeah, I'm sure you are. And they run online stuff and training. Yeah, I mean, just rape crisis is even worse. There's actually no mention of rape in that report, in that article, but you know, that's actually included. It's unspoken, as it were. Right, we move now to Australia. I've often said that the worst country in the world for a man to be falsely accused of rape is Canada, but Australia is rapidly catching up. There's an article here from Bettina Arndt, who's an amazing woman. Madness in our courts. Feminists bully politicians into passing unjust, unworkable laws. This was January 31st. Meet Mark Catelli, a Sydney gelato salesman who 5 years ago found his face splashed across the newspapers accused of sexual assault. It turned out that his accuser had made similar accusations against 2 other men within the previous 2 years. One case ended up being dismissed and the other man was found not guilty. Catelli was due to face a jury trial where this woman's history of false allegations would not have been mentioned. In New South Wales, it is not permitted to present this history to the jury because of rape shield laws. Now, this is all wrong. There's a lot of case law in the United States. A false allegation of rape isn't sexual history. It shouldn't be counted as sexual history. And she goes on, Catelli was lucky. After a number of court hearings where his complainant failed to show up, the prosecutors dropped the case. He dodged a bullet, being spared the ordeal of facing a jury who had been denied knowledge of this woman's flaky history. But the damaging media reports are still out there for all to see. And there's a lot more of this. Judges have been speaking out against the injustice caused by Section 294CB for over 5 years. In a case known as RVRB, District Court Judge Sean Grant explained that section of the Criminal Procedure Act prevented a jury from being told that a complainant in sexual assault prosecution was a compulsive liar. Can you imagine that? The statute occasions significant unfairness to the accused. The unfairness is real and not illusory, the judge wrote. It prevents the accused from placing before the jury relevant evidence, brackets her past fabrications, which is capable of going directly to an issue in the trial, namely the honesty and reliability of the complainant. It prevents the accused from showing the complainant to be a compulsive, false accuser of sexual misconduct on the part of others. That's from the judgment. And some of the stuff here is just incredible. There's some stuff here which I'll be adding to the Full Slope timeline at some point. This is the work of feminism, as she says. There's an article here about Brittany Higgins, Saint Brittany or scheming charlatan. Brittany Higgins is the woman who claimed to have been raped by a fellow worker, Bruce Lehrman, who he comes across as very plausible, but he's a bit of a dodgy character. And I think in that case they were both lying. There was a civil trial in which Lehrman was found to have raped Higgins, but I think they're both lying. Actually, he's a lot more plausible than her, but I think they're both lying. But this is I don't know. The whole thing is just very messy. I was going to add some discussion of an old case, but my main YouTube channel has had a strike, which I'm hoping, a copyright strike. I'm hoping that fairly soon I will have that resolved, because I used footage under fair use. It wasn't a lot, less than 2 minutes, and it was clearly fair use. I wanted to add 2 clips here about that case I mentioned, but I don't want to get another strike, albeit on this channel. So I will leave that until another time. I'll continue to add stuff to the Full Slope timeline. I've found some cases from Iceland recently, which I've yet to add. I don't think I've got any from Iceland. Oh yeah, I've got one. one ridiculous case from years back. But I'm still expanding as time and resources permit. I've been not very well, not ill in the sense of sick, but I've been sleeping so much, and I don't know how long I've got left, but can't be that long. But anyway, I'll get this together. Please visit the Full Slope timeline. If you have any cases you want me to add, I don't add everything. I don't add every acquittal, but please feel free to send me stuff, links, etc. Official documents are most welcome. Official documents are most welcome, and I will speak to you again at some time, in hopefully next month.